All right, fellas. So we're back here once again after conference weekend, and it was insane. We have a lot to get to. But first, let's dive right in. Kevin, what were your overall thoughts of Big Tens?
Did you say Big Tens or Max? 'Cause I was pretty fired up, if you ask me. Real quick shout out Tom Borelli. He's retiring at the end of the year, so want to make sure I get that in there. But dude, it was awesome. Big Tens were amazing. Big Tens generally are, right? And we knew we were going to get some excitement. And it's funny talking to Earl earlier, and just briefly we're like, yeah, and then 125 continues to do 125 things, and it's like, yeah, the first round at 125 was chalk, and you think maybe it all hell is not about to break loose, but then it did. And then you get the what was it 6, 9, 7, and 4 seeds in the semis,
Yeah.
but like not disappointed in that, you know what I mean? Like it was still all great wrestling.
Yeah, because 125 was a literal crapshoot no matter what conference you went in. Before
Mhm.
we came on here, we were talking about how Steve O'Pullen literally won Big 12s last year and then placed seventh this year. So, like,
Mhm.
any place you turned outside of, I think, the ACC, which was what, one versus two in the finals,
Yeah, but
or
it went the other way around.
yeah, but
I
like,
guess
even
it's two
still,
seeds by rankings. It was the opposite.
but at least like you still had your top two guys that ended up in the finals, right? Like there were a lot of places where that wasn't the case. And it was just like 125 has been absolutely drunk all year. And,
Mhm.
that's why I said, like, why don't we just make 125 a random draw? Because at this point, everyone is just beating everyone. Ayala
Mhm.
ended up beating Ramos for third place. Like it was just all over the place. But like you said, it was awesome, honestly, to watch wrestling on day one, wrestling on day two. ACC's coming in on Sunday. EIWA's was 2 days of fun. Just all the wrestling that we got to see. Big 12s, SoCon, MAC. It was really really cool. But Robbie, what about ACC's? What was your overall thoughts?
So before we dive into that, do we know anybody on the rules committee? Because if we could make one weight every year, just random draw, and we know that at the beginning of the year, how much fun chaos would that be? To just choose a different weight every year and make it happen. You start with 25. That's the one we need to start with this year. Be the test weight, see how it goes.
Yeah,
It,
I
it
like
would
that.
make no difference this year.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with this.
Yeah.
ACCs are great. As you can see, I'm exhausted. I didn't get home till about 2 last night. Long drive home from Chapel Hill. Had to mold the youth of America this morning, shape those young minds. So I had to get back to do my real job. It was great. ACC tournaments always a load of fun. Like I was saying to somebody the other day, it's great because one upset can cause just so much chaos.
Mhm.
But for the most part, we didn't have a crazy amount of chaos. It kind of went as expected for the most part. It was tight as a team race going into finals, and then NC State just separated and put on a pretty nice show in the finals to pull away for their sixth straight ACC championship.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like I said, it was pretty awesome to see. And EIWA's was awesome. You had a pretty tight team race for that one too. Awesome. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, EIWAs, like you said, good overall. A little bittersweet, if I'm being honest. It was the 120th EIWA championships, and as you guys know, last one with the Ivy Leagues included. So I think there was a lot of extra emphasis on the team race this year. I think Cornell wanted to go out on top and three-peat, which they did. But Lehigh was right in their tails, like you said. Came down to the finals, and they were neck and neck. I expected Cornell to win. I thought, maybe Lehigh would be in there close, and they were winning after a couple of rounds there, and just couldn't really hold up. Cornell won, I think, by like 5 points, 6 points, something like that. So it was really, really close. And they had 9 automatic qualifiers. Did Cornell? Lehigh had 8. Cornell will probably get a 10th, with Cornella getting a wild card that'll be announced tomorrow. I'm sure he'll get one. Just unfortunate. He had an injured knee. Looked like he re-injured it in the quarters. Medical forfeited out of there. Um, Not sure how serious the knee injury is. Looked like he was in a lot of pain. Obviously, didn't wrestle the next day. So if he does get a bid, definitely will not be 100%, just from what I've seen. And they had other guys banged up. We can get into that later. But yeah, overall, bittersweet, but really exciting team race. Bucknell was a great host, and it was a good way to end the EIWA with 17 teams. It was a lot of stuff happened, and I was glad to be there.
Yeah, what do they go down to next year without the Ivies in there? How many Ivy League teams do we have?
6 will be leaving, so there'll be 11 teams. I'm hoping they add at least one to make it, an even 12, which would be a lot better than 11. But yeah, so there'll be 11 teams next year, and Ivy League will only have 6 teams. So be interesting.
Yeah, how it's going to be weird how they do allocations and how they look at stuff with Ivies having their own thing. Going to be interesting with how that shakes out. Well, let's kind of dig in a little bit further. Let's talk some best overall and worst overall performances. Also, I'm going to stick with you in the EIWA. Who really popped for you? Like, who was somebody that you knew had the potential, but they really showed up? And then somebody who maybe you were just like, man, I really thought that they would do better.
A few names come to mind. Obviously, Ryan Crookham. He won the OW for good reason. Him versus Vito round 2 was worth the excitement, worth the wait. I think. They each had a few takedowns. Crookham had one at the end to win that one. I think 10-6 was the score. Sticking with Lehigh, Nathan Taylor at heavyweight did not have. He had bonus point wins the whole weekend. He was a stud. That weight class qualified 8 guys to nationals, so it's pretty deep there, and he annihilated everybody. I think Nathan Taylor is a little underrated. Working out with Jordan Wood every day, multiple-time All-American, Zach Ray, NCAA champ, just having those 2 guys in the room, he has jumped leaps and bounds this year. Josh Coderhaunt at 141. Doesn't get talked about a whole lot. He's been, anywhere between 12, 16, 18 in the rankings, but again, just kind of demolished everyone in the field, which has a return All-American and Composto in it. Hines was around a 12 guy, and Cornella obviously ranked pretty high, and, Coderhaunt came out on top, beat everyone there pretty easily. MVP, though, I might have to say Benny Baker of Cornell. Came in as an 8 seed, kind of the guy that no one really talked about in Cornell's lineup just because they have so many studs, right? Came in as an A seed, walked away with 3rd place, and he beat the same guy, Phil Caniviaro of Harvard, twice. Harvard's Caniviaro was ranked 5th coming in, top seed. Benny Baker beat him in the quarters on Friday, and then again for 3rd place. So I think that was really impressive. And just to give a few shout outs, LIU's Anthony D'Alicio got 7th place at 184. First NCAA qualifier at Division I level for LIU, so pretty historic moment there. And Brown had a qualifier for the first time since 2019. Michael Joyce at 125. So it's good to see Coach Lean get his first qualifier there as head coach at Brown. Talking to him a little bit, he was really excited about that. So great things coming, from not only all the Ivies but Brown as well, who was kind of, I hate to say it, but the bottom of the Ivies. Now they're kind of working their way up already with, Coach Lean has been there for 6 months, not even. So it's good to see a qualifier from them. And yeah, I could keep going on, but yeah, I think those guys kind of stuck out for me.
I think it's okay if that's where they were. It's not like you were.
Yeah.
Saying
it's not
bad
breaking
stuff
news.
about it.
I just kind of feel bad, being real with
Yeah.
how it is.
It is what it is.
And I'm sure he kind of knew that talking, and he knew what he was going into. But him and the new administration, they're on the same page, and they're really ramping things up there.
Yeah. The guy that kind of stuck out to me, and not for good reason, was Foca. I guess you kind of expect more from Chris Foca, right? And he loses to Aaron from Columbia for the second time this
For the
year?
third time this year.
Third time
Yeah.
this
I was
year.
going to talk about that later,
Third.
but if you bring it up, yeah,
I mean, that was a
it's
performance
crazy.
that was on the other side that I was like, man, like what is what is this kid doing that is just shutting down that everything that Foca has to offer? You know, it's not it's unheard of, right? Like most guys, we've seen Foca do really good things at the NCAA level, specifically at the NCAA tournament. You
Yeah.
expected him to come in and be the guy at 184 and look the part. And he ends up taking his third loss to a guy you probably wouldn't expect him to lose to. I don't want to, I'm not trying to shit on a guy, but like, let's call it what it is. Like, Boca is and has been one of the top guys in the country for a while, and he didn't look the part. How did that match go?
It went, it was pretty even. And then Azarov, I think, got a takedown late when Foca was losing by a point to kind of ice it. And I was talking to Azarov after he won. I did a little interview with him, and off camera we were talking. He said him and Foca grew up together. They're pretty much from the same area in New Jersey. So I think there's a lot of familiarity there and a lot of respect. I think they're at the same club he mentioned. So I think they kind of go way back. But I mean, yeah, you guys know how hard it is to beat someone 3 times in a row, no matter how good the guy is. But like you said, a guy like Foca, returning All-American, Azarov pretty much has his number. And, Azarov came in as the 5th seed and won the bracket, so a 4th or 5th seed, whatever. But yeah, came in and won the bracket. So yeah, really impressive with him. And Lennox Wolak at 74, his teammate, their partners, buddies, they each won EIWA titles. And it was cool talking to both of them because they kind of had goals beginning of the year to push each other. And this is one of the goals. Now the next goal is get on that podium. And, it's good to see what Columbia's doing up there too.
It's future hooky Lennox Wolak.
Yeah, that's for sure. You got a good one down there, Robbie.
It's kind of wild with Columbia getting, these three qualifiers so far, and it's none of the guys we kind of thought it was going to be going in too,
Yeah,
so like positive.
Yeah, they were banged up all year too. Angelo Rini was not able to wrestle. He was registered, but it was a late scratch. Ogun Sanya, who I really like at 65, was kind of hurt all year. So yeah, they had some pretty gnarly, not in a good way, bad results, dual meets. But they were just kind of giving guys matches, and these guys that stayed true and kept the grind going, they paid off in the end for them. So I think they tied Penn for 4th place, and they had 2 champs, 3 qualifiers too, so, and the other guys didn't put up a lot of points, some of those guys, but the guys that did, they put up points. So it helped them get 4th place.
Now, Robbie, I'm coming to you in the ACC. As you kind of look down all the finalists and all the champions, it's not anyone that you wouldn't expect to win outside of probably Nick Hamilton at 165. How would you kind of sum up his performance?
Hambo was on fire all day. Nick Hamilton he's a great kid. I have a special place in my heart for him because he's a Nebraska guy, but he has always had that potential, and that whole redshirt freshman class for UVA, there's some absolute hammers in that class. And as they kind of stabilize, I mean, even Hamilton was sick for a month plus this season. So like as they stabilize and have a better, more consistent season, you're going to see more performances like that from the rest of that lineup, like we did with Hamilton. But he was on all day. His attacks were great. He just kind of wrestled fearlessly, and that made the difference. It was tied up really, really late in the finals, and Brady tweaked his knee and came back off that with like 45 seconds left and scored 2 takedowns to take it. He won most outstanding wrestler. He just looked great. I was super, super impressed. I know every time I think about Nick Hamilton, Cody Goodwin is somewhere smiling, just because that's the way it works. But he looked fantastic.
Yeah, especially coming off the season that they had as a team, right? Like it didn't start out very good for Virginia with, having things canceled. Things were just really inconsistent. So when you get to this time of the year and your guys are still peaking and doing very well, that speaks to how consistent you were in the room and with your training. Anybody else kind of stick out to you? And obviously there's the elephant in the room of like how things ended at 149 that we'll get to later on. But anything else really stick out to you? Maybe it's not a guy that made the finals. Maybe it's a guy that placed third or out, just kind of out wrestled their seed.
As far as positives, um, TJ Stewart. I mean, that's one we gotta really hit on.
Yeah.
He was not the starter for the first half of the season, and then Sam Fisher goes down, gets injured over Christmas break, and TJ comes in as the full-time starter, gets his weight under control, because that's kind of been the biggest issue with him, is that he came in kind of more of a build for a 97, but he's not big enough to be a 97 in college. He's not the tallest guy. It's kind of like, would be like Deron Wynn at 97. He would be really, really wide if you were a 97. But he got his weight in check, and like he hit on in his interview, he hasn't had to cut weight in 4 or 5 years. So it was that was a learning curve for him to get kind of back to that grind. And now that he's got it under control, he's been lights out. I mean, he's 3 top 10 wins in the last 4 weeks. He's beat Fishback twice, beat Reese Heller, and just looks great. He looks comfortable. He looks like he's having fun. He's out there kind of dancing around outside of shots, kicking his leg away and doing a little ditty on the way back to the center of the mat, and just looks free. And that's what he needs to be successful. And that's, if he can stay that way, he's going to be really, really dangerous in Kansas City.
Yeah, he had to dig deep in that semifinal. I mean, he gave up stall points. I think that's, for me, like his performance was great all weekend. I think, watching him was really good, but I think he still needs to kind of work on when he has a lead late and what needs to happen, right? Like how you need to hold center, how you need to stay in there and just kind of hand fight and do the things you need to do, because when you don't, you get dinged with stalling,
Yeah.
and that's not in the place you want to be. Ultimately, he relied on pure power and just like athleticism to blow through that double and
He's a
finish.
freak.
He's a
freak
freak
athlete.
of nature. And that was like, you saw, like he was dead tired. He was definitely dead tired in the semis. That was nothing but athleticism, raw strength, and just power, just going through that double.
That one too is a lot of grit. He wanted that one back really, really bad. Kane beat him in the duel. He opened up a huge lead to start the match, and just kind of faded and gassed out, and Kane came back and won. And I know, talking to his dad, that's one he really, really wanted to get back and was important to him, and he made it happen.
Yeah. On top of that, I mean, you said it. NC State looked great in the finals. They had how many guys make the finals? Just about everyone, really. It was what Penn State did at Big Tens is what NC State did at ACCs. It's just a ton of finalists and just kind of mowing down the field. And I think, did they go on? No, I think outside just
No,
184.
TJ beat Fishback. They went 8 for 9,
Yeah.
or sorry,
Yeah.
7 for 8.
7 for 8. Yeah. That's an incredible feat. And you had guys like Ryan Jack that showed up against Cole Matthews, Camacho back on the upswing. It was just great. I mean, this time Orini wasn't cutting it close with Latona, and, ended up doing, what he was supposed to do and winning. He really probably set himself up for a really high seed, which we'll get to later with the 133 seeds. But NC State's performance, specifically in the finals, you mentioned it was close, and then until it wasn't.
Yeah.
It just kind of all happened all at once. And Trent
I think
Hidley.
the biggest, that was to say, that's the biggest disappointment, is we didn't get to see Trent go out. Max Shaw hurt his foot. I saw him after the semifinals getting looked at by not even just the trainers, but by the doctors. So it was legit, and they weren't going to risk further injury. I mean, I wouldn't want to face Hidley if I was like 300%, let alone 75%. So, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't risk that either going into Kansas City. So it sucks we didn't get to see him, win his last title. But it is what it is.
Yeah, but it was awesome. They gave him a nice farewell, even though he was in enemy territory at UNC.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that. There was a lot of red there.
Yeah, and that's the thing is even though it is at UNC, you're going to see more red at a lot of those places. If you're in anywhere around Raleigh, you're going to see more red than blue in a lot of places.
Yeah, it's back
Um,
in Durham next year, so I'm interested to see if we're going to have some more Carolina blue there next year with a another year of Cole under the belt.
yeah, if he keeps talking that talk the way he does, and maybe we'll see something happen. Um, the Big Ten is where 125 went crazy. And the performance for me at Big Tens by Braden Davis was incredible. I was really impressed with that kid, how he stayed poised. And, everybody is kind of giving him flack for his interview afterwards, where he just said, it just doesn't matter. Like, I'm going out there to wrestle. Like, he's a man of few words, guys. Like, he's what, 18? So cut the man some slack. He was fresh off the mat. And it doesn't matter at that point, right? Like, he just did what he did. You saw his raw emotion, but now he's on to the next best thing, and but for me, like, that stuck out was just like the fact that a kid who you probably didn't think was going to start at the beginning of the year because you had so many other guys that had experience for Penn State at 125 essentially solved the problem that they couldn't solve since Nico left. And that was huge for them. I think it might have been a Piles tweet where he said that, Penn State was projected to win Big Tens by like 52 points. And that was with Carter Sirachi's points. He gets 0. They still win by 47. Right? Like, that's incredible feat. That is wild. And, guys like Braden Davis out wrestling their seed, beating fifth year seniors and and Pat McKee, like, that's incredible. And he looked really, really good doing it. He looked really poised. For me, that was an incredible performance. Um, that was the one that stuck out. I think everybody expected the rest of Penn State's lineup to kind of do what they do. But I think that was probably the question mark for me when it came to Penn State's lineup, outside of obviously whether or not Carter was going to wrestle. Kevin, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I got to go up at 165. I mean, Messenbrink and Hamidi, we finally got it. That was the matchup we were all excited to see. And I mean, credit to DJ, man. He came out ready to go. And I don't, I'm not going to talk for him about if he doesn't seem, I've never seen him run out of gas, right? I don't know if that's what happened or if he just was pushing and kept pushing too much and, just got caught there for a bit or, I'm not going to speak for the guy. I'm going to have to rewatch the match to really feel like if it was really a gas tank issue or Mitch. I mean, Mitch is that good. Mitch is
Yeah.
just that crazy good, man. And so to win it in the way that he won it was pretty impressive. And he's not like it's not like he's a guy who has a ton of come from behind wins this year, right? Like he's usually the guy blowing dudes out. And so it's not, to be mentally tough in that situation on that stage was super impressive. There was one other guy, let me double check here, 165, I think it was. Just to pull this out here. Yeah. Chris Moore of Illinois was 11 and 14. He's a redshirt freshman. He was the 11 seed. He loses his first match to Cam Amin. He ends up battling all the way back and taking sixth place. So he had a whole backside run where he beat Caleb Fish. He beat Stony Buell. He loses to Caliendo, and then he ends up wrestling Taylor and losing 4-1. So I would definitely wanted to shout out Chris Moore of Illinois. I mean, if we're going to shout out guys who made something happen, like you're the 11th seed. You're not supposed to place sixth and qualify the weight on your own, but he sure did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, guys that out wrestle their seed, it's always incredible. Right. And I know this doesn't really probably follow the same pattern that you're on, but I like that Cam Amin seemed to bounce back this weekend. He looked better this weekend than he has in the last couple of months, since that Messenbrink match, right? Like, talk about Messenbrink gassing people out. He damn near did that with Cam Amin, and Cam just didn't seem to be himself. So him, looking as good as he did, wrestling, going in the, what was it, sudden victory in overtime with Caliendo. Caliendo eventually getting the win there, but that stuck out to me. And then on the other end of it, and then like I said, I know it was 125, so this year you kind of have to look at 125 with a grain of salt, but I expected Barnett to do better than seventh.
Mhm.
You just, he's been, I think he was what, third, or he was in the third place match, or I think he was at least top five last year. Um, but I just, you just expected more from him. But like you said, when you look at who we had in the semifinals, it was the 9 versus the 6 and the 4 and the like, it was a hodgepodge of seeds, right? It looked like a freaking color by numbers when you really looked at the seeds. It was just like, all right, but you're not surprised to see the guys that you saw being in the semis and then eventually in the finals. When I think it was just probably in our intermat uh group discussion of, when you see 125 has been kind of chaos, you think Pat McKee is going to be awesome in this setting, because he is kind of Mr. Chaos. You watch his
Yeah,
matches and it is chaos.
he's an agent of chaos to say the least. Yes, he thrives.
Yeah, but I honestly, I was happy to see him in the finals. I know he's been, I had a chance to interview him, before the tournament, and we talked, and he was itching to wear that gold singlet. He's never worn it before, and it's a kind of a rite of passage, and so it was pretty awesome to see Pat make it to the finals. Ultimately, he comes up short against Braden Davis, who is just clicking at the right time. Surprise, surprise, a Penn State guy is peaking at the right time. But, you know, hats off to Pat McKee. I want to see him put it together at the NCAA tournament. I swear to God, I do not want to see Pat McKee losing in the first two rounds. Like, I don't want to see it. We've seen it the last couple of years. We understand what he can do on the backside. He always comes through. He normally comes through, I should say, and makes it onto the podium. I would like to see him place very high and, be in the semis, be in the quarters, right? Like, I don't want to see him losing after two, going, to 0 and 2. Like, I want to see this kid place very highly. So for me, that was kind of a highlight, especially after talking with him and just like off camera, hearing the passion in his voice, how much it means to him that Eggum got an extension and he was part of that, and coming back for his last year, and how it was never a question. That was awesome. So I love seeing that. But then, gonna, shout out the Michigan boys having a really good tournament as a team. I think we talked last week, and it was just like, I was looking at Nebraska. I thought Nebraska was gonna be that team behind Penn State, and Michigan comes through. How did it feel going on in Michigan when you saw that?
Yeah, it felt really good, man. I mean, it was, I think that I grew up in Ann Arbor, right? I don't think that I grew up. I know I grew up in Ann Arbor, but I think that even last week too, I agreed with you. I was like, yeah, I think Nebraska, because you never want to get your hopes up when you want a team to be successful and do well. And sure, could I have sat here and said like, yeah, D'Agostino as a 7 seed is probably, I mean, a little too low, even with 125 being crazy. He can beat anybody out there. And then he went and did it. He almost was in the finals. So he out wrestled his spot. Shane Griffith wrestled his potential. Funny enough, Will Lewan scored the most team points for the Wolverines with 17. So pins help, obviously, so we got that big headlock. But I meant to look this up. I didn't do it though. I can do it real quick. Let's find
Realize
out
he said team points and not match points, though. Because
that's
if
what
it
I
was
want to find out.
if it was match
14
points,
points and
No,
match
match
points.
points.
Yeah.
I,
Uh,
and that's the thing is, well, no one. He said something about haters and hearing the haters. No one is hating. There's no hate. Like,
no.
we ultimately know you can score a lot of points. We've watched you do it damn near your entire career. It's not hating. It's wanting to
frustration.
see you do the things we know you can do. Like,
Mhm,
we see it. Just go do it, right? So
mhm,
yeah, no hate. I love Will. I love him.
mhm.
Like I said, I'm an Izzy style guy. I love Izzy, and Will's one of those Izzy style kids that came through. I love him to death.
But
I
that's
just
not
want
the
to
Izzy
see him.
style you think of though, until he actually opens up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you want to see him just go out there and open up. He can shut down anyone's offense. We've seen it. Anyone's offense. Him and Levi Haynes was a 2-1 match during the season. You see him shut down the offense. And then when he pulls the trigger like he did against Brayton Lee,
I was just going to say that overtime match. Yeah, he took one
awesome.
shot and it was a great shot, and he scored. It's like,
Mhm.
I do that a little more? Do it 2 times a
Yes.
match, maybe three. It's.
I
I
I
thought it
used
was
to
great.
I used to jokingly call him, "Will you please shoot Lawan?" Like, but because he's great at it, again. But at the same time, I said it, I think, in the same group chat. Like, if I was as good at anything as Will Lewan is at stopping people from taking him down, like, I'd be pretty happy. So, but you got to be impressed. I mean, he did a really good job this weekend, made the finals. That's a huge help to Michigan getting that second place spot. They really needed a full and complete team effort.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick in the Big Ten and move to best matches, or at least my favorite matches. Um, First round was my favorite match. Was one of my favorite matches with Uzakis and Teskey. That match was wild. Brody Teskey locking up a cradle, getting the win was insane, and everybody knew that Brody Teskey was going to obviously be an issue at the 14 seed. You don't think Brody Teskey is a 14 seed, and obviously that's nothing but error, him getting in late or anything else. So I put an asterisk next to Brody Teskey being a bracket buster, right? But like that match was incredible. I loved it. I loved every freaking second of it because he was down. It looked like Buzakis was going to end up getting the win, and he just kind of it was just gamer mode for Teskey and came through and scored the points that he needed to score. But yeah, outside of that, it's certainly the mess and brink match. I mean, I think I just really loved a really good comeback this weekend, which is ultimately what kind of had me kind of on the edge of my seat watching the entire weekend. Kevin, what matches stuck out to you?
Dude, I loved I mean, I'm going back to the finals, but just because, when you get to watch Mendez and Bartlett wrestle, like, that match was so good. We're talking about great defense and guys stopping stuff and shutting stuff down. I mean, that was a whole lot of what you saw in that match. Bartlett is just as amazing defensively as a Will Lewan. But Mendez, man, with that little kick of the foot sweep thing he did at the end, and that shot was just, that was spectacular. I mean, that he timed it well. He was aggressive the whole match. I mean, Bartlett was already on his heels, so that was pretty cool. And then obviously, I loved watching Lovett and Gomez. I mean, that was such an exciting match, back and forth, a lot of attacks, a lot of stuff on the edge. Just those guys. I mean, again, I think it was Willie that tweeted out something like, "Can I watch them wrestle every hour or every week or something?" It's like, it's so much fun. It's so exciting. The potential for anything to happen at any moment is right there. So it's like a Fast and the Furious movie. It's just, anything could happen at any point. So
Then there's a lot of explosions and
yeah,
things you don't expect to happen. Yeah, it
yeah,
was
a lot of
definitely awesome.
family. Yeah.
a
So
lot of family. Yeah, the foot sweep to a double is probably one of the most unexpected setups. And Jesse
yeah.
Mendez, you got to dig deep in your bag to score on Bo Bartlett because his athleticism is just so high level that he's able to get out just like Will Lewan. And just like Will Lewan, we wish Bo Bartlett would shoot more as well.
Mhm.
He's got great offense. We know he can get to his offense. We saw him do it against Lemley, and then he shut down and kind of let Lemley back in. That was another really good match. And Lemley up against Brock Hardy was awesome. I mean,
Mhm.
we can probably go on and on about all the great matches that happen at Big Tens and
Every
across the
one of
board.
Lemley's matches was great. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you did give him the Sergio Lemley Man of the Year award, so
Yes.
that did happen. ACCs, what were the top matches for you?
There's a few really fun ones. A lot of like big comebacks. Finn Solomon over Michael Giaffrey in the first round was a big one. Uh, TJ Stewart, Gavin King was a fantastic match in the semis. Nick Hamilton with the 2-1 win and tiebreakers over Derek Fields in the semis was huge. Or in the semis was big. There's not a lot of like super crazy matches. Jack Geoffrey, Tom Crook in the Consi semis was pretty wild. Geoffrey was up big early. Crook came back. They stopped for a concussion check. I feel like I have a concussion right now because I can't think of the words. But that was like a 10-minute break, and Crook ended up winning, I think 12-11. It was a super tight match. There's a few of those matches. That was kind of the bad thing for UVA, is that they were on the wrong side of several of those matches where they opened up really big leads and looked great, and then the guys stormed back and ended up getting the win. So
yeah, there were, what was it? I can't remember what match it was. I mean, obviously we talked about TJ Stewart having to really like claw his way back in. Andonian looked good for coming off injury. And that was another one where you were wondering which Bryce Andonian we were going to get. He obviously, I mean, Ed Scott just brought his A game. It was the Ed Scott we didn't see all year. And he had a hard draw, call it what it is. Like, he had to beat Bryce Andonian to make the finals. That's never easy. Also, and he did really well.
That match was much closer than the score indicated too.
Yeah.
Anytime those two wrestle, there's just some wild scrambles that don't make any sense to anybody. But that, I mean, I think it was like 14-5, 15-5. It was a major, but it was a lot of scrambles that were created, and Ed was able to come up on top of them. And he just handled it, had a lot of poise, looked really good. Bryce's 2 wins. He had a tech fall and a pin. So, I mean, he looked fantastic.
Didn't he wrestle the same guy twice?
Yeah, he wrestled Ferrero from Duke. He
beat
him with like 16-1 in the first round, or in the opening round, and then on the backside he beat him. So we had another match.
Minute and 12 seconds.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was one of those ones you could hear from like all the way across the gym, just feet to back, stuck and not moving.
And he did like a trip with the hurt knee too, which I think was like, okay, we get it. You're healed.
Yeah. Well, then there was some questions in the first round because he came up limping in his tech fall a couple times. And it turns out that he was just cramping, so it wasn't bad. He said he feels good. I take him for his word. The other one
crystals are doing their job.
Yeah, don't mess with the healing crystals. The fountain of the healing fountain by the duck pond on the Virginia Tech campus that nobody's supposed to know about. So don't spread that the word of that.
Well, now we know.
The other one was Dayton Pitzer. I mean, he came back off of injury against Colton Schultz, ended up getting third. Yeah, he beat Ryan Katka for third. Looks good. I mean, he lost to Owen Treffin. I think it was like 7-4. Treffin controlled him, and it wasn't really close, but he didn't look bad. He certainly didn't look to be 100%, and he didn't look to be super comfortable being aggressive. But Pitzer pinned Cade Lout to get into the third, fourth match, and then beat Ryan Katka 7-0. So he looks good. He's going to have to hope for a wild card, which we'll get to later. But he looked certainly not 100%, but looked that he could be in a position to do something in a couple weeks.
Did the Katkas coordinate their singlets for that match?
Dude, it was very confusing for me. It was Katka camo, and it was just a lot of large humans in a lot of gray camo, and I didn't know what to. If I was colorblind, like I feel like if I was colorblind and saw double, that's kind of what was happening.
I'm going out on the limb and saying they planned it.
They might have. I'm not going to tell either of them that they can't wear a camo singlet if they want to. They're both incredibly large humans.
Yeah, it was
also
just
super nice though.
It was just a crazy coincidence. Like I turned around, I was like, wait a second. This just doesn't look right now. There's something wrong with my screen. They're both wearing gray camo singlets. The fact that both teams have them too is the even crazier part, because their school colors are not alike at all. Like,
it's more surprising when it's not surprising that Virginia Tech has that singlet, but UVA does not. Like, the athletic department does not let them have much fun with their singlets. So it's actually kind of surprising that they even have that.
That's what I hear about ACC singlets in general. Like UNC has that black one, which I love, and they had to
The
like
black with the Argyle.
they had to like sneak it in, and
Mm-hmm.
that is like my favorite singlet. I'm like, I
Yeah.
want to see them wear that singlet all the time, but they had to like sneak it in and
Yep.
wear it like once in a while. I'm like, you guys have full black football uniforms with black helmets and everything else, and there's a
Yeah.
blackout theme. They just want to wear a black singlet, and you're not even letting them. But no, yeah, let's keep throwing guys in white singlets. That's always good.
Yeah. Everybody loves white singlets and all the negatives that can come with that.
Oh
Hofstra. I mean,
man.
just glad that wasn't a white singlet in Hofstra.
Yeah, thank
Oh boy,
Jesus.
could have
That's
been
just
bad.
could have been
It was
very
bad. It could have been
Could have
worse.
been worse. Yeah.
could have been even worse. Austin, on to you. What were the best matches? I mean, I think it's kind of obvious, but what were the best ones that you had seen?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few that I really cared about just being an EIWA guy between, two not nationally known powerhouse guys. For example, like the fifth place match at 133 was Max Leet of American. He faced off against Sacred Heart's Andrew Fallon. Fallon used to be a teammate of Leet's in American and transferred. And it
Very
didn't end
un-American of him.
well. It was a kind of a bad blood between them. So, like stuff like that was interesting to me, but not for everyone else. But the main match that you're referring to, Crookham and Vito, fantastic match. Vito had the first takedown, Crookham had one, and then had another one in the third. Um, it seemed like Vito used a lot of his hand fighting to kind of slow down Crookham compared to the first match. Um, Crookham still, freshman. I think Vito was really, really crowding him, moving forward with using his length and, keeping Crookham at bay. I think Crookham likes to be in from space a little bit, uses his scrambling ability a lot, and he kind of has a nice misdirection, sweep to the one side. He's really good at it. So I think Vito did a lot of scouting, and Cornell did a great job there. Um, but since we don't have anyone from the Big 12, I kind of want to talk about Ryder Downey and Chittum if we can pivot from
We're
the EIWA
Can
because
we please?
we're gonna get there. I wanted to
yeah,
talk Vito a little bit first. He looked a little slow throughout the tournament,
yeah,
a little bit more strategic, I guess. For
yeah,
me, I'm like, okay, it's probably it looks like it's a back injury, is what it looks like. He looks a little stiff, and he's really choosing when to be Vito and when he doesn't need to be Vito, because the Vito that we saw against RBY was attack, 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 quick hands, fast movements. This weekend it was, all right, we're going to kind of lull you to sleep a little bit. We're going to play a little bit, not so much play, but we're just going to make sure we're putting ourselves in position, and then we're going to go. And when we need to go, like I have 5 seconds of a spurt that I need to go and hit this right here. And, you saw it with the takedown, you saw it with the reversal, but then that was kind of all you saw. There was like flashes of Vito. So that was like what I kind of took from that match. And that's the crazy thing for me is like, if he's able to be that guy and still grab takedowns against one of the top guy in the weight class and look the way he looked, this injury has to be bad, right? It's got to be something that's really nagging him a lot for him to look as slow as he did. Was there anything, I mean, you were there, was there anything that you saw during warmups? Or, I mean, Crookham was also coming off injury essentially too.
mhm.
Anything you saw with either one of them? Because I feel like they both kind of had slow starts to the tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Crookham's quarterfinal match was against Drexel's Hildebrandt, who pretty tough competitor, beat Kolioko and Mason Liepert during the year. Crookham beat him like 4-2. I think he had a takedown, and that was it. But semifinal, he took care of business there against Phipps of Bucknell. Yeah, I thought as the tournament went on, Crookham got a little bit better. Finals, I think he looked really good. But back to Vito, I agree with you. I think in warmups he just didn't seem himself, and I think his stance, at least in the matches I saw, he was pretty vertical in his stance. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
up and down. He wasn't changing levels as much as like kind of what you were saying. because you're used to seeing those level changes, boom, quick explosiveness. A lot of it was a little more hand fighting here and just a little more reactionary, maybe counterattacks than what we're used to, which they were still really good. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like there was a lot of, hey, I'll react once you kind of react, and I'll score my counter offense from there. That's kind of what I saw in the finals match. Obviously, he called injury time too. I think he did something to his knee, tweaked it, hyperextended it, something. But yeah, so he's a little bit banged up. I think it's back or neck injury too, like you said. And then now we got that knee on top of it. Like we mentioned all the time, he's just getting old, man. These
Yeah.
injuries, they come and they don't go away so quick. But I'm hoping that knee injury is minor. He was icing it afterwards. Thought he had a really bad limp, and then I saw it was a big ice bag, so I felt better about it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Back to you guys. What are you guys saying? I think, like I said, the stance was just kind of more upright, a little more reactionary, a little more counterattack.
Don't you hate it when, like, we're sitting here and we're doing this over the weeks and we're like, man, you'd love to see a guy out there battling and wrestling, and then comes to conference and you're like, oh, he really was hurt.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I feel bad about that. Yeah, that stinks, man. He did not look like himself. And I mean, and it's all relative, right? Because the guy we saw last year was lit on fire and just burned through the field, So, um, but it stinks because, again, that guy was so much fun to watch, and it was so great to see Vito be able to get that championship. And hey, hopefully he can go hang out with Bryce and get some of those healing crystals, and someone can light him on fire again.
Yeah, they need like an old guy circle. They're like when they get to Kansas City, they got to like head off somewhere, where only the
Make
old
sure it's
guys
not in a
go.
sauna though. You can't have
Yeah,
that.
no
Yeah.
saunas. Go sit somewhere and just kind of relax and maybe go to a spa and drink some tea and you know just kind of
You
some
put
relax.
bingo
Carter in there
maybe.
and gets their nails done too.
Yeah, honestly, they probably all need it at this point because as old as they are, I think today is Dayton Fick's 26th birthday. As old as all of these men are, they probably need everything, the full works at the body shop. So,
You could have said
um,
36 and I wouldn't have batted an
listen, I'm 36 and I can't move the way that these guys can. So if they're able to do that, then I need to, get off my ass and keep it moving. But yeah, let's get to some of these questionables from the weekend. You already mentioned the Chittum match and Ryder Downey. I'm I was just like frustrated watching this match because I'm like, you can't like Chittum, you can't get out. Ryder Downey, you can't get out. But we're gonna keep going top and bottom. It's like someone score some points, do something here. Chittum was so close to being out, and with that sit out, like I love that he finally changed course and was like, okay, I'm gonna get to my sit and fight hands when I'm on the mat, because as soon as he was standing up, like he was trying to quad pod up, Ryder Downey was locking his hands as soon as he came to his feet and bringing him right back down to the mat. So going to a sit was a perfect game plan. But when he turned down, he took a lot of pressure off and allowed Downey to just go right back around behind. So it was just like, man, you got to give some like a little bit more pushback, create some space before you turn down and hip heist down. That match was just stupid. I was just like, what the hell is going on? And I know Chittum's family. Like I know his dad and his uncle and his mom. Like I can't wait to see them at NCAAs and be like, what was going on? Like
Yeah,
what was that conversation like after the match? Because watching it at home, I was going insane. Like, okay, wait, why are they going back down now? And secondly, I thought Chittum had back points too. I really did. I thought that
hmm
there was at least a 2 count or something. So I
yeah. But
was
the
I
ref
was
was counting
completely
side
confused.
headlock there. Like we were talking about that in the chat. Like the ref was counting side headlock instead of. I thought he was counting backs. I
Yeah,
don't know why he was
so did
counting side
I.
headlock. It was weird.
So did
Maybe
I.
he
And
got
Downey thought
distracted
that
by
he
that.
had jumped the gun too.
He did, I think. I don't know why they didn't challenge that. I don't know if he
Yeah.
can, but
What are your guys' thoughts on that match?
So I was watching it on mute, I think. Um, I thought it was an awesome match. Like I didn't really notice the back point thing. Like I just thought those guys were so close, so connected, and it was just battles. I mean, it was two guys with the same sort of grinding style, right? Um, I so I missed a lot of like the frustrating pieces of it so much as I was just like, God, both of these guys are so close to scoring so many different times, whether it's getting away, whether it's getting a takedown, whether it's just getting rolled through and putting it was just an absolute, immovable object and whatever the other one is, right? Like they were just running into each other over and over. It was like a game of chicken, but
Yeah.
they just back up and go again. It was awesome, man. I thought that was, I mean, obviously 165 was pretty awesome, but man, 157, like that was a battle.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. I was as stupid as it was, and both corners made mistakes with, putting guys down, and
Mhm.
you feel like they just weren't prepared for the moment, and everything else. I highly doubt that that will happen again where they're not prepared for that situation. But like you just seen it, right? Like that's really what it was. They weren't prepared for the moment, but like as dumb as all of it was still an awesome match. It was like, who's going to score? Who's going to get out? Is somebody going to score a takedown? It was a serious game of inches that entire time. And, Downey ultimately comes out on top. But yeah, I was like, I don't understand why they're not choosing neutral now. Like, why are they going on their feet? Like, but like I said, I ultimately think that they didn't realize that they could because they hadn't been in that situation before.
I think it's one of those things too that stands out, after the fact, and when we can look back on it and say, "Oh, this wasn't a simple thing that we should have, that should have been done." But in the moment, there was so much. I'm going to say chaos, but it was just so overwhelming everything that was going
Yeah.
on that I think it just kind of got lost in the moment.
Yeah. And then everything was moving so fast too. Like the referee was like, "It's your choice. It's your choice. Give me your choice." Like what? Like there was no time to think in there, no time to game plan. Obviously, that's not something that you're prepared to work in. To work for out on the mat. And you're probably not even doing that in the room, right? But like, man, I tell you what, I guarantee you, every coach is watching that and they're like, when we get there, we're taking neutral. Like we're going on our feet again, right? Like if you ride him out, we're going on our feet. Like we're gonna know every single one of our options from here on out. Um, the other questionable one for me, and this is before we get to ACCs, was that Big Tens, the Brody Teskey Van D match. It was on the backside, and Van D ended up winning in overtime. But Teskey got like a takedown and back points, and they waved the back points off, and then they went to overtime, and Teskey ended up getting the takedown, but then like that got taken away, and then Van D ended up winning. Like it not as much chaos as we saw with Chittum and Downey, but it was just like, I mean, it had Iowa tweeting, us against the world, which is kind of the Iowa battle cry for forever. But like in that situation, it kind of was because Brody Teskey kept scoring points and was not getting them. They just kept taking the points away, kept taking the points away. So that was like the questionable one for me. Ultimately, Teskey ends up, I think, taking what, fifth. Um, but that was like the head scratcher. And I want to go back, and I'm probably gonna end up going back and watching that match if I can find it, and just like, wait, what was happening here? Because it just didn't add up. Um, but let's get to the ACC. Arrington ends up winning this match. I over Henson. What was happening? What was happening in the gym?
It was the last match of the night. Um, that was the marquee match. Two top five guys. They started at 157 for the finals, and we're going to end with that. Just kind of throughout the day, there was a lot of inconsistency with the officiating, with what was a stall, who was getting stalls, whether or not calls would get overturned. There was a point in the Justin McCoy and Tyler Eichen's semifinal that UNC challenged three things like 30 seconds and won 2 challenges. They won a cutback, and then they won, I think, a drop down count on a stall. And that gave Ishins 2 points and almost gave him the win, because McCoy ended up coming back in sudden victory to get the win. But it was just, there's some weird things. And like not knowing what was going to be a stall versus what wasn't. Guys getting called for stalling where the shot count was like 6-1. So there's just kind of some weird things like that. And then with Henson and Arrington, they're both true sophomores. They've been pretty close throughout the last 2 years. I mean, Henson was an All-American last year. Arrington, I think, was around 16. Both really, really good. Both really aggressive, great offensive guys with really, really strong defense. Every one of their matches has been 3 points or less. So it's been within a takedown. And Arrington's kind of been closing the gap over the last few times. This was as close as they can get. And it was a weird scramble on the edge. Henson ended up coming out on top, got his leg over, and kind of reached through and looked to me like he had underneath the arm and had a wrist, but was still side to side. I'm trying to show this with my leg. You can't see, but he didn't actually hook the leg, which is one of the things that somebody, there's been a lot of discussion on Twitter about this, because it was really questionable. So Henson had the leg over, but didn't hook to pull it. I thought he had the takedown there, with the way they'd been calling takedowns throughout the day. I thought he was going to have 3 there. He didn't. They wrestled through it. Arrington ended up squaring up, coming around, and getting to a similar position where he stepped over and hooked the leg. Henson had his leg completely tight, pulled into his body, wasn't broken down to a hip, and they called the 3 for Arrington. They kind of stared at it. The ref looked back and then threw up the 3, and that was that. Then they reviewed it. And again, kind of with several calls being overturned throughout the day or being changed or added, points being added, I was hopeful that it was going to be, let's call that not a takedown. Let's put them back on their feet for another minute and let them decide it. I didn't like that that's how it ended. It kind of left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. I don't think it was a good call. I mean, I can see the argument for either of them, but I think if they call that a takedown for Arrington, then it's a takedown for Henson before that. So it's a really tough spot.
Yeah, Henson was in that same situation. Henson was on his face. Like I went back, I mean, all the talk all day long, and the amount of people that responded to my quote tweet of saying this, and I've watched that portion of it that somebody had posted so many times.
That's Jack. He's one of the student reporters for
okay.
Tech. He's awesome.
And he had probably the best angle of that entire situation. And I'm like, okay, in this situation, Henson's on his face. His hands aren't locked. The only reason that his arm is still on the leg is because he's laying on his stomach and he's trapped there. He was fortunate enough that there was some space let up. Arrington was on his face and Henson was on top. Arrington was fortunate enough that Henson let pressure off and allowed him to come up. And when that happened, that's when they kind of switched positions. I can see people saying, yes, he hooked the leg. He had, his hand on his other leg. But his other one is like tight chest. He didn't
ever reach all the way across. Like he reached and kind of touched the other side, but never like fully draped across to get, what you would call control on the opposite hip. So
that's where I was like, I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. And I don't have, Wolfpack colored glasses on. So basically anyone that was responding and saying that it was a takedown, like I saw Tariq Wilson respond and say, this is why it was a takedown and everything else. I'm going to kind of take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure that's a guy you train. So obviously you're going to think
the argument there is the hook, but I mean, what is the difference between lifting up with a hook versus being all the way over the leg, in between them, having the leg split and not hooking, but being underneath on a wrist? Like it's so nuanced there. Like I don't see how it can be one and not the other. Either they're both not takedowns or they both are.
Yeah.
And
Apparently,
if
the
they
difference
both
is 3
are,
points.
yeah, well,
No, I don't
I know
know.
it just
I didn't think it was a
I
big time.
hated that it ended on that, because those two always have battles.
Mhm.
And you know, be aware of the situation too. Like, it's clearly a questionable call. As an official, look at that, say, well, I could see it either way. Let's err on the side of caution. Put them back on their feet. Let them
Yeah.
decide it. Like, don't leave it in your hands and leave it up to a questionable call. I that's what I just didn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It just wasn't something you wanted to end on. And even before I saw the clip on Twitter, I was watching it and I was like, yeah, that's not a takedown. That does not seem right to me whatsoever. So ultimately, Arrington gets the win. NC State wins their sixth ACC
Sixth straight.
title. So, kind of is what it is, right? So
I would
we're
say
on
though that
NCAs.
for the 149 field, there's going to be a real pissed off Caleb Henson coming in, and that's not something I would want to face.
Yeah. So let's off the heels of our questionable calls, let's talk a little bit of the seeds. And one of the questions that I had was 33 of like what happens to Vito. And originally, like I was thinking, and I'm looking at it and saying, okay, well, if Vito wins, then Fix gets bumped to the 1. Vito will most likely be the 2 or the 3, with Crookham being the 2 or the 3. Arini is in there somewhere. But then, Vito ends up losing. I think Vito gets like the 5 or 6, honestly. I could honestly see Arini being above him as well, winning the ACC. And I think Arini has what, 1 loss, and that's the Fix on the year.
He's got, might have 2. Let me look at that.
I know he's lost to Fix. I can't
Yeah, he
remember who
lost
his
to
other
Fix.
loss.
Fix kind of controlled. I mean, that it was a close match, but Fix definitely
Yeah,
controlled
Fix
that
was in
match.
control of that one. But that was
Yeah, he's
my
got
thought
another
of just
loss.
like what happens to the returning NCAA champion, right? Like where does Vito
Arini
get
lost to
slotted?
Bazakas.
There we go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
He got pinned by him.
Right.
There you
Who
go.
went 1 and
Yeah,
2.
that was
in
the
Big
that
Ten.
was the
Yeah, that was in
at
New
Collegiate
Orleans,
Duels. That was a
or
ugly
excuse me,
duel
in
for them.
in Nashville. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was
That was a
actually there for
weird
that. I
one
should
too.
remember that.
It's like a first, like a 1 minute pin too.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Ohio State. Just kind of there was like nothing but
Mollywopped them.
pins in that, like
Yeah.
the first like 3 or 4 bouts. But yeah, I think Arini will most likely, well, with that will have to be after Vito, because Vito's 2 losses are to the number 1 ranked guy. So I think Vito most likely gets like the 4 or 5, most likely the 5, I think. But yeah, that'll be really interesting. What happens at 133 specifically with Vito? Because when I was tweeting, Nomad, responded and was like, he might get the 5 or the 6. He's like, the Matrix will probably spit him out at like 5, but the committee will probably move him to 4. I'm like, okay, I can see that. I mean, he's the returning NCAA champion. He's got 2 losses to the same guy in his own conference. I can see Vito getting the 4 over Arini, mostly because of how Buzakis finished at Big Tens, Buzakis' other losses, and everything else. So you have to factor Buzakis' losses into Arini's, and Arini being pinned. So Arini, potentially that 5 or 6 guy. From the EIWA, what do you think happens to Vito? And do you think Crookham gets the 1? Crookham should get the 1.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. If Crookham gets the 1, I would love to see Vito get either the 3 or the 6 to put him on bottom. I wish, and and vice versa. If Crookham gets the 2, give Vito the 4 or 5, put him on top away from. I just think they should be separated. That's just me being EIWA. Just
Yeah.
not want to see them again. I mean, I want to see them again, obviously, but I think splitting them up would be the best option, since they're 2 of the best guys from the same conference. Everyone else kind of is in their own conference, so that's the only reason why I think split them up. That would be great, in my opinion. If they happen to make the finals with each other, great, we'll have round 3. But
Yeah, and I
yeah,
think actually now that I rethink, I think Vito might get the 3 because of Ragusan losing to Shawver.
yeah,
originally my thought was that if all the 1 seeds end up winning out, then, and Ragusin outplacing his one loss, that bumps him up. But Ragusin getting, beat the way that he did by Shawver, that elevates Shawver's seed. So I think Shawver will be in that 6 or 7 sort of mix now. And Ragusin is going to have to be bumped down to like 5. Ragusin is he's 2-1 against Shawver, so I don't see Shawver being seated above him. But yeah, I think Vito might ultimately have lucked out in the sense of getting the 3 now that Ragusin ended up losing.
And then
Yeah,
where
you
do you
got-
put, Nasir Bailey in it too? Because I mean,
Just
if
going to say that, yeah.
we're looking at the top 6, you got Vito at 13-2, Fix is undefeated 17-0, Crookham's undefeated 19-0. So you think you go Crookham 1, Fix 2, probably Vito 3, then Ragusin and Orini. You know what? That's kind of a toss up. Orini's losses are better because Van D is a worse loss than, I guess, I don't know. Bouzakas and Van D are pretty. So I don't know. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But Bailey doesn't have huge wins. Yeah, Zeth Romney and Evan Frost are his 2 best wins. So that's going to be tough to pump him up too much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be, especially because he won his conference tournament too. Like they're going to attempt to give preferential treatment, right, to the conference champions. And obviously every conference is weighted differently. I'm sure it's probably like, Big 10, ACC, Big 12, EIWA is probably number 2 just in the weight class itself. But yeah, I mean, that's 33 is going to be, it's going to be serious. And then my other question is what happens now with Carter Sarachi? He obviously tweeted, the next chapter is Kansas City. So great troll job on him to, kind of give everybody the, oh, well, maybe he's done and moves on to other things or gets surgery or whatever else. But how bad does his seed now get with those 2 losses? I honestly, I couldn't see him being dropped that far. I could see him still being the 2.
Right. Yeah. I
Like-
haven't seen going below 3.
Yeah, like everyone's like, this is gonna drop his seed. Yeah, from 1 to 2.
I could see maybe 3. I think you have to reward DeVos. I think we go Mackay 1, Cade DeVos 2, probably Carter 3. That would be. I think that's how
Well,
I would lean.
Or you make Griffith the 3. Griffith has some pretty bad. He has a bad loss at the beginning of the year, but he's avenged it. Or I don't even know if he's avenged it, but like Griffith showed up to the duel where Carter didn't. Right. So Griffith was on the mat when Penn State and Michigan wrestled. So how do they play that out where Griffith was there, Carter was not? Do they weigh that? Does that become a factor?
His loss, though, is his actual loss, other than the medical loss, is to Lorenzo Norman. Like,
Yes,
that's not a good loss.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It was a really bad loss,
Yeah.
but
And about Ed Ruth too.
Yeah.
He's 2 losses on the year, one's to a tool. So that's a good loss. The other one is to Patrick Kennedy, also a pretty good loss. So I could see Big 10 champ getting the 2 seed there as well, and then Carter gets to 3 or 4 maybe. But I think again, Mackay gets to 1. You got to put Carter on the opposite side.
Yeah,
it's just
I don't want to.
common sense to me. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But
When is seeding done with common sense?
that's what I mean. That's why I'm kind of holding my
yeah.
breath to see it. But
Yeah.
that's what the fans want.
Srirachi,
Yeah.
the 8 seed.
Yeah. Yeah. Give him the 14, just like Teskey.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Jesus.
Administrative error.
Yeah. 125 is going to be seeded by pulling names out of a hat.
Yeah.
That's how that will go because it can't be done any other way.
It'd be
no,
like,
I mean,
it should be like drunk history. Like they just somebody drunk and put them in a room and just like have them sort out the logic on their own.
I know some guys.
I certainly know
This
some
sounds like a
guys.
job for Blood Round, is what that sounds like.
Yeah, I'm on it, fellas.
Yeah. I think does Braden Davis get the 1? Or does Stanich get the 1? Does the EIWA get 2 number 1 seeds? I know I think there was a tweet out there that asked that question this weekend from one Austin Summer. Does EIWA get 2 top seeds? Is that what you think happens?
I think with Braden Davis winning EIWAs, I think he'll get winning Big Tens. I think he'll get the 1. I just think Stanich has lost to Spratley, and who's his other loss? Figueroa. I just think those aren't as good as Davis's 2 losses. I forget who Davis lost to, but
Caleb Smith and Ayala.
Yeah.
Caleb Smith and Ayala. I mean, yeah, I think those are slightly better. And
Maybe.
being Big Ten champ, but I don't know. He wrestled more matches too.
I don't
know.
I don't know about
how much is it going to matter at this weight? I mean, you go through the other weights and look at these, and the best record in here is Anthony Noto, who's 16-2, but avoided competition for the second half of the season because he knew he was in a slump.
He had some bad losses too.
Yeah. So I mean, can't even really go off a record here as much as you can just like eye test, I think is going to be the biggest thing. But they've all beat up on each other so much that what are you going to do?
I'm just looking through the rankings from last week.
What?
Dean Peterson was 22nd. Made the finals. Oh my God. Anybody can win this. Just make Braden Palmer of Chattanooga the 1 seed. What the hell?
Yeah.
Who cares? Doesn't matter anyway.
Nobody's going to want the 1 seed. That's the thing. If you're the 1 seed, you're like, I decline. Like, no, I'm good. Can I get the 2? Just
let's give it to the Brown kid.
Yeah.
The kid from Brown. Let me rephrase that before
Hey, Robbie.
Well done. I think that was
Michael Joyce from Brown University.
Like 5-second rule of saying things.
Yeah. In this conversation, I knew exactly what you meant. So it was still really funny. Yeah, no one's gonna want the number 1 seed. It's just not. No one wants the top ranking. No one's gonna want the 1 seed. Like it's been like picking up a bad penny the whole year. So who knows? The other one for me is 165. Obviously, O'Toole is the 1. But where do they put Messenbrink? Where do they put Carr? Where do they put Hamity? Like it's a little different, right? Like where do they put Julian Ramirez, right? Because Ramirez has a win over Carr. Carr has 2 losses, one of them being the number 1 ranked guy. Messenbrink is undefeated with, wins over but he hasn't wrestled Ramirez or he hasn't wrestled Carr. Carr beat Hamity. Like this is another dumpster fire.
Does this get screwed up and we have Carr and O'Toole on the same side? Because that doesn't seem like it should happen.
I think that it will, honestly. I think Carr gets the 4.
Yeah, probably with some version of Ramirez and Messenbrink at 2-3.
Yes. I think Ramirez gets the 3.
That's my opinion too. Yeah, just having that win over Carr is huge.
Yeah.
And one loss to O'Toole. His other one's to Olenek, which is at one point was really good. Olenek has 5 losses now, but I think it's still a pretty good loss.
Yeah, and that's Olenek is kind of the monkey wrench because I mean I know it doesn't matter because it was the All-Star, but he beat Hamity, and then he also beats Ramirez. So like it may not look as good now because of how many losses he has, but that messes up Ramirez's seed a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why I think Ramirez will ultimately end up still be getting the 3. But because you can't put Hamity over Carr.
I'm gonna defend my dude Olenek real quick because he's got a couple losses, but 2 of them are to Keegan O'Toole. and he did place third in the Big 12s.
Yeah.
So, it's not like he pulled a Poulin and just fell off.
This is true. This is
And he
definitely
split
true.
with Peyton Hall.
Yeah.
So he, the other loss he avenged.
So he lost to Caliendo, Carr, O'Toole, and Peyton Hall.
Which isn't bad.
O'Toole twice.
It's really
Yeah, I
not.
mean, but Caliendo looks good too. His only losses are Messenbrink and Hamdi and Carr.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
just
Carr
wish
gets
they
the 4.
yeah, I just wish they separate the conferences a little bit. Keep Messerbrink and Hamity on the different sides. Same with O'Toole and Carr. But then,
Yeah, but
yeah,
you
then
I don't
it's a
think you
mess.
can. I don't think you can with O'Toole and Carr based off of how the other guys from the other conferences are coming in, right? Like
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's tough.
like
I don't know.
Like I said, Hamity will most likely get the 5 after losing to Messenbrink. I think the 2 and 5 seed was on the line with Carr losing to O'Toole. So the 2 or the 5 was on the line of Big Tens. Once
Yeah, I can agree with that.
ultimately I think, before it, Big Tens was before Big 12s. So Messenbrink winning, he was essentially the one for that point in time until we figured out if it was Carr or O'Toole. And then O'Toole wins and he's the clear number 1. Messenbrink has to go 2. And then Hamity has to go 5 because he lost to Carr.
It's just wild how tough. I mean, this was going to be the problem at some point during this year anyway, right? I mean, I think when Ramirez got that win over Carr, that really kind of messed like what this should look like up. It really changed it dramatically, right? Because we knew that, we at least assumed there was going to be maybe some split matches between Carr and O'Toole during the season. Obviously, the illness and everything kept the first one from happening, but yeah, I'm just looking at the Big Ten again. Like you got a guy like Caleb Fish who just screwed himself. I mean, he'll probably get an at-large, but like he's not in the top 10 seeding conversation at all now,
And I hate to bring this up, but Holmes, you were in Nashville when Ramirez did not wrestle against Carr,
Yeah.
as did half of Cornell's lineup.
Yeah.
So just going back, if they would have wrestled and split on the year, the seeding is completely different.
And you're seeing, and this is literally question and point of why that didn't happen.
Yes.
That's exactly why. And I said it when it happened. If Carr would have beaten Ramirez at CKLV, we see it happen in Nashville. I don't care what anybody says about these guys were injured, this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. No. If they lose in Vegas, that match happens in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to get that one back for your seed to be where you want it to be. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. I don't care what excuses you got. That's my thought on it.
Yeah.
Yes,
no,
certainly.
I agree with you.
Maybe Ramirez
was the
was
best
hurt.
interest.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he's normally stepping out there on the mat, right? But when you look at the circumstance, and you got to throw a little bit of conspiracy. I mean, you're trying to tell me you don't believe in any conspiracy theories? Like, come on now, right? Like,
love it.
There's some that you got to believe, and I think
like Sasquatch.
Listen, there's some large men in the world. I think Sasquatch is among us. Let's put it that way. But seriously, like I really think that.
And Younger Bastida just beat him.
He did. He did. He beat him badly. But I think that match happens in Nashville if Carr wins in Vegas. I just do. And this is, like I said, it's question and point of like why it didn't right there. Because this conversation right now of like, well, Ramirez has to get seated over Carr now because of that one win. He's got
head-to-head. Yep.
He's got the head-to-head win. It's just like what we were saying with Ragusin and Shawver. Shawver may have won handily in the finals of Big Tens, but that's the first time he's beaten him. He's now 1-2 against him. He can't I could not see them seeding Shawver over Ragusin based on their head-to-head matchups.
That was a bad one.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
And he got caught, and then he was chasing. It'll be
He was
fine.
chasing, but
Yeah.
still. But yeah, I mean, 65 is. I'm going straight to that one when the seeds come out because I want to see where everyone is at. Because let's call it what it is. Everyone wants to see Messenbrink versus O'Toole, but they don't want to see it in the semis or the quarters or anything else. They want to see it in the finals. Should they both get there, right? But like Carr O'Toole is probably going to be a semi now.
I'd be cool with seeing Carr and Messenbrink too.
Yeah.
I just want let's get some. We're gonna we're gonna get awesome matches, right?
Yes.
165 start to finish is not going to be disappointing, even if we get Carr and O'Toole in the quarterfinals. I'll watch it.
How would we make that happen? Would Carr have to be like the 6 or something?
I'm not a good bracket.
I don't know.
Together.
I'd have to look at a bracket. But I was thinking that honestly, like as I was writing,
it'd have to be 1-8. It would have to be 1-8. Yeah, for quarters.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see that match. I was thinking about that before because I was like, Hamity and Messenbrink have never wrestled. Carr and Messenbrink have never wrestled. Right? Like I want to see those guys go at it because Carr can keep up with the best of them, right? He's got a great gas tank. O'Toole's got a great gas tank. Normally, Hamity does too, but Messenbrink just had a different gear for him. Any other weight classes that you guys are kind of scratching your head at when it comes to seating? Or did we cover them all?
I think 41 is going to be a little wild now.
Yeah.
With Bartlett losing.
Yeah, but I mean,
but Mendez lost to Matthews.
Sergio Lemley 1 seed.
Yeah, Lemley's the one.
Mendez lost to Matthews though. What does that do to his seed? He may have beaten Bartlett, but does that do anything to his seed? I mean, I don't think so.
No.
I don't really think it's that big of a ding, but like
yeah, I think you just put Mendez at the 1. He had to beat Woods and Bartlett in the same tournament, back-to-back matches. So like that's enough credit there. Probably stick Bartlett at the 2. You probably put a guy like did Woods and Ryan Jack wrestle?
No.
Was that?
No.
I don't think Woods and Ryan Jack have hit at all this year.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild, man. That's
It's
probably
there's so many good Big Ten guys. There's like 8 or 7 or 8 in the top 10. So like,
yeah,
when does the next conference champ come into play? Because
Mhm.
you got EIWA and Coderhunt, you got Jack from ACC, Echemendia from the Big 12, but
Echemendia is a wild card in that weight class.
I think those Big Ten guys are better, but they all beat each other, so they have more losses. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do there.
Mendez winning also helps Ryan Jack though, because 2 of his losses on the year are to Mendez.
Yes,
the other one is Cole Matthews. So he avenged his Cole Matthews loss. His only other 2 losses are to Mendez. So that helps him out. I mean, he's 18-3.
Yeah.
That might give him the 3.
It might give him the 3.
He got Wyatt Henson 30-2 in the year. That's a lot of matches. But
who has he wrestled?
That's I don't care who he's wrestled
against people in the field.
I don't care who he's wrestled. That is a record from 2012 there.
Right.
No one has 32 matches in a year anymore.
Yeah,
but look at
he was he was in a lot of opens first. He wasn't on the roster. I don't think he was on the roster.
Look at
first
his
half.
If you look at his record, it's not as impressive as it sounds.
He's a really low RPI.
He's got 2 matches against people who are NCAA qualifiers.
Yeah.
And he got a tech fall in the finals of the MAC tournament.
Yeah, and he got pinned
Shout
by
out Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
Got pinned by Coderhant, and his other losses to Joey Oliveri at the Princeton Open.
Oh, Joey.
Yeah, Joey Oliveri. Yeah. Jimmy Oliveri's little brother.
He is a loss out to Matthews too. Oh no, sorry, he beat Matthews. Sorry.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be fun. I'm glad that we can just like speculate and not have any actual say in what these should look like because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a vote on the most outstanding wrestler at the ACC tournament. They changed that this year. That was kind of cool.
Nice.
And I'll get to work at 125 right away.
I'm on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, let's get on that. Yeah, that's everything that I got. You want to talk? What else do we got on the list here?
Good wild cards. I
Well,
think is the
wild
last
cards.
thing.
What are some of these wild cards you guys got from your conferences, Robbie? I know you've got some stuff written down here, so why don't you start it off?
Yeah, I was going through it trying to figure it out. So there's 28 allocations. The number that I keep coming back to is 34, 35, I think is what we're going to end up with for the ACC. 25 is just so hard. I think Spencer Moore is possible. I would like to see it. I think he's earned it. I'm hopeful that he gets one. I think Tom Crook gets one at 41. He was one match off of being eligible for RPI. He's top 15 guy. He should be good. Finn Solomon at 49 is a hard maybe. Andonian should certainly get one. 65 is kind of the big one for me. Derek Fields and Holden Heller both need at-large bids. So Heller was spent some time in the top 10 this year. Fields has been around 15 all year. So those two should have good arguments for it. Same thing with Luca Augustine at 74. Andy Smith had the worst time to have an awful tournament and did not look good on Sunday. So he's going to have to hope for one at 97. And then the question is going to be at 285. Ryan Katka, if he would have beat Pitzer in the 3-4 match, I think he would have kind of been guaranteed one. But losing to Pitzer in the 3-4 puts him at a harder spot to get one. And I don't know that Pitzer has the resume to earn one. That I need to look at and see what the field is there.
Interesting. Yeah, I think Andonian is out of all the guys that you're kind of rattling off. I think him and Rook are the end-to-end favorites of just like getting them first, right?
Yeah, I would be shocked if either of those two didn't.
Yeah.
So that would give Virginia Tech 9. And Andy Smith would be the only other questionable one. NC State has 9 now. They're only waiting for Derek Fields, and he's certainly got an argument for it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them get all 10.
Yeah, I haven't looked. I haven't even thought about like Big Ten wild cards as of yet. Kevin, have you?
I mean, the only one, the big ones are obviously Bazakis, and I just noticed that Donnell Washington for Indiana once again starts off his year pretty good. I mean, he beat the hell out of Alex Kramer, 2-time MAC champ, bar up chips. And then just falls apart at the conference tournament. And every year he gets an at-large bid, and I'm like, and then does nothing. So I hope he doesn't get one again. I don't like just we give someone else a chance. He's had a couple shots at it, and it has looked just as good at NCAA's as he has at the conference tournament. So
yeah, I'm gonna be digging into that as the week goes on. I mean, the obvious one is outside of Buzakis is Carter Sirachi.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get one.
I don't think he's going to get one either. It's he's borderline for it, honestly.
No. As punishment for that tweet he sent on Sunday.
He really did have everybody kind of in shambles. They were like, "What's going on?"
I think they should make him ride the Greyhound out to Kansas City for those shenanigans.
Yeah, that
Caleb Fish is the only other guy I got. The MSU guy ended up 10 allocations. He ended up 11th, seeded 4th.
Anything EIWA? I know your alma mater didn't fare too well at EIWA's.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that too much, but yeah, honestly, the whole city of Philly didn't do too well either. Penn did not really perform up to what I thought they would do. I think they only have 4 or 5 qualifiers at the moment, and 3 guys are probably going to get wild cards. So I think they'll have 7 or 8, depending on how all that shakes out. But yeah, just some other big names that are probably looking for wild cards. Diego Sotelo of Harvard, 25-pounder, has a nice win over Noto this year. Kolioko of Penn, top 12 guy, went 1 and 2 at conferences. Don't know how that happened. Didn't place, but he should probably get one. But 33 is going to get wild there.
Yeah.
I mentioned Cornella before. He's a little banged up. Another Penn guy, Jude Swisher, just came down to 149 this year. Placed 1 spot out. He lost the champ from Cornell Fernandez in the final. So that he should get one there. Robbie's guy, Mulvaney from Bucknell, missed out by a spot.
Hairline brother.
Yeah, I'm hoping he gets one. Big one, Danny Wask from Navy at 174. Yeah. They qualified 6th. That bracket fell apart. He lost to Canigliaro in the wrestlebacks.
Yeah.
So yeah, Wask ended up getting 7th. Max Hale from Penn
get a spot.
Yeah, he ended up in 4th. Yeah,
okay. He did not look good this weekend.
Yeah, he lost to Benny Baker twice from Cornell. Max Hale from Penn, 84-pounder, just missed out. And my guy from FNM, John Crawford, 97-pounder, just missed it by 1 spot, maybe 2 spots, but he should be getting one. So yeah, I think EIW had 53 automatic, hoping to get 6 or 7. So maybe they'll have close to 60 qualifiers this year, which would be really good.
Nice. Yeah, it's when does everything come out? Some point this week.
Wild cards, I think, are tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we shall see what these brackets look like. Me and Kev are going to be there. Kev, what time? When do you get to Kansas City?
I literally just looked up train tickets from Grand Rapids to Kansas City because that would be cool. Other than that, I'll probably be driving in Wednesday at some point. I got to figure that out.
Yeah. No, I get there at like noon on Wednesday. So my flight leaves at like 6 a.m. here out of Texas. So we'll get there, get settled in, and I'll probably meet up with you guys at some point whenever everybody gets there. My final thought is I want to give a shout out to Parker Keckheisen because I love him, honestly. Me wearing this UNI shirt is not a coincidence. The man is a beast. He's great in all positions. It just looks like it hurts to shake his hand. And, he was just impressive, and he always is. He's one of the guys that I just like want to see do well. I talked about Pat McKee at the beginning. I want to see Parker Keckheisen get, a title. Like you just want, like, he's just such a good guy that you want to see just succeed. So, I loved everything. I love everything about UNI. Big Doug Schwab fan.
Absolutely.
The man is awesome. He does everything the right way. Roper, also an amazing human. So yeah, I love UNI, big UNI fan. So that's outside of, the other conferences and things that we cover is, Big 12s had a really good team race as well. Iowa State ends up winning. But Oklahoma State qualified all 10 guys, every single one, all 10. I think they had 2 guys that finished 3rd. The rest of their guys were in the finals. So it was.
They lost the team race. That's crazy.
They lost the team race. Yeah. Yeah. So just incredible to kind of see that. But yeah, Oklahoma State qualified all 10 guys. They're the only team in the country to do that because Penn State needs the at-large for Starachi, which they'll get ultimately. But yeah, only team to auto-qualify every single wrestler. But
I thought we decided that Starachi wasn't getting one.
Yeah, that would be exactly what everybody wants. That entire field at 174 would be breathing some fresh air if that happened. But they have to wait until next year for that because he's his last year. But
we're only one cryptic tweet away from that not being true, though.
Yeah.
Or he'll be unattached.
Yeah, go up unattached and run through the bracket. That'd be amazing. But yeah, no, I thought Big 12s had the best finals, honestly. It was incredible. Me, Fretwell, and Jamil have a group text, and we were just like, these were the best finals. Maybe because it was the end of the night, and they were just going at it. I mean, the Chittum match was crazy. Younger Bastida is
He's
an
a freak.
animal. Like,
Goodness.
just ridiculous. I mean, O'Toole Carr was an amazing match. So like, start to finish, it was just great.
125 was crazy for a change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was pretty wild. So it was just like, it was just awesome to watch Big 12s and just kind of sit back and watch these guys kind of go at it. And yeah, it was awesome. I cannot wait to get to Kansas City and see everything, and be the first time that I'm on the floor for NCAAs since 2019, since 2020 was canceled. So it'll be awesome to be back in those tunnels and
So jealous.
some fun. Well, you had a kid, so
I know it's my fault.
Don't wash your underwear together. Learn to grow.
you
Gotta
had a
get to the
kid.
bottom of how these kids keep appearing. I don't know how this happens.
It's happened to me 3
Nobody
times.
knows. Nobody knows.
Yeah, so I think that's how it's gonna happen. To end it, I'm gonna ask Kevin this question: who would you like to see come in for the chips? Let the chips fall where they may, and in whose lap would they be falling? Yeah, I just
Well, this is what I'm going to do then. I'm going to do the definitely is not happening thing first, right? Like if Casey Cunningham were available and interested in coming back, that would be the move,
better
right?
back up the Brinks truck for that one.
Is there a donor
Yeah.
who has an extra $1 million
That's
that's hanging out?
it's never going to happen. But that
Oh,
would
it's
be
just starting to
cool.
go fund me.
Right. So I mean, there's Win Mahalik, guy like that coming back, with NCAA finalist for them. You've got the names out there, right? The that are floating out in the ether, the John Reeder, the Nick Simmons, the Ben Bennett could take over the program, right? There's the David Bolliard rumors thrown around there too, but I think he's going to stay close to Ann Arbor. Just knowing kind of his situation. So this is the good thing though, right? I mean, when you're a guy like Tom Borelli, who's done such a great job for so many decades, you have options of guys who can come back, who've been in the coaching ranks and who've been doing that. I mean, Scotty Sentez, another guy who's got a head coaching job at Campbell, but hey, he could come back. Why not? So there's lots of options out there. I think that Central Michigan's going to be in a good spot nonetheless, whoever we end up with. Brent Metcalf, that would be cool. He's not leaving Iowa State, but
I mean, who knows? This is Carr's last year.
ooh, hey,
There you go. Start that
Mount
rumor.
Pleasant.
Start that rumor. No, I mean, selfishly, I'd love to see John Reeder get a chance at being the head guy. You talk to that man for 5 minutes and you want to compete for him, right? Like John, I don't even care about NIL money, man. Where do I sign, right? So he's that kind of guy, and you would love to see a guy like him get an opportunity. And it's obviously been the Bono and Reeder show, whether it's in South Dakota or in Wisconsin. So, but no, I would love to see him get a chance at being the head guy somewhere. And if it's Michigan, then make it happen.
And hey, all the love to Heffernan and Stencil too. Like those are great dudes who've been coaching and working hard, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen. It's only going to be good outcomes. So
awesome. Well, gentlemen, any final thoughts as we wrap this up and wait until we get the wild cards and the brackets and then get on to Kansas City? Any final thoughts? Anything?
I'll give a quick shout out to EIWA Coach of the Year, Kevin Ward from Army.
Yeah.
They had a heck of a season this year, and they finished third at the tournament behind a really good Cornell and a really good Lehigh team. So I think it was pretty unanimous vote for him to get it. So shout out to them and America's team and Army, and doing a great job there. Finished 25th in the rankings this year. Really, really solid team.
Yeah, if we're giving shout outs, I'm giving one to Little Rock. I love what they did. They had 3 conference champs. Nasir Bailey has looked amazing. I said at the beginning of the year when I got a chance to see those guys up close in Nashville that they wrestle for each other all the time. Like it may have been the conference tournament where it's all about getting yourself to the NCAA tournament, but they wrestle for one another every single time out. I love what they've put together, that entire program, and in such a short amount of time of what they have done. So shout out to Little Rock. Love what they're doing. Can't wait to see what those guys are doing on the big stage. Any other shout outs, gentlemen?
Just want to give a general one. It's been the last few years covering the ACC. I've gotten close with a lot of the wrestlers, a lot of the coaches. There's just a lot of great people in the conference, and kind of being around everybody at the tournament kind of makes you realize how much of an impact some of these people have on your life, and how what kind of upstanding people they really are. So it's just I left feeling really good last night just about where the conference is as a whole, the people who are leading the teams, and the young men that are coming out of the programs are just they're good people. So it's just I left on a good note, and I just want to make sure everybody gets a shout out for just doing the right things.
Awesome. Kevin, anything? You want to fire
I
up
shouted
Chips
out.
to
I shouted
finish
out my
up?
dude. Yeah, fire up Chips. Let's go. Tom Borelli. We'll
Awesome.
miss you.
Yeah, we'll let you shed some tears off camera. But no, this is another great conversation, gentlemen. I think we probably went the longest we have all year because, well, a lot of stuff happened, so
Wow,
we kind
Just
of
wait till next week.
had to get to it. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, but yeah, we'll come back. We'll talk about at-large bids. We'll talk some brackets, do some preview stuff before NCAAs. But that's it for now. See you.